Yo, 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 what's going on? It's Terrell, Hall of Fame, D-Line, TBKC, and all that sweet, beautiful, wonderful shit. First and foremost, before I get into this, support the page, y'all. I got to go to Cali. I got to do these interviews, which y'all are going to enjoy. I got some beautiful guests. But you can hit Zelle, you can hit Apple Pay. Those are 346-292-6560. Or you can do what is it, Cash App. That is TBKC Dogs, DOGS. And I'll post the link for Venmo, but it's my name or whatever, Hall of Fame Bullies. But I'll post that shit up. But I appreciate y'all, and I'm just remembering because a few of y'all did send a few donations, so I really appreciate y'all because I'm gonna get out there, and I do finally have the camera, so I'm gonna get y'all some interviews, man. I'm gonna get y'all some interviews with some Houston legends. I'm gonna get y'all some interviews with some Florida legends. I'm gonna get y'all some interviews with some California legends, and we just gonna be sharing that good information about these dogs. So I really appreciate y'all support for the page. All right, this is why I do these videos. One of the main reasons why I do these videos is quite simply because of misinformation, because people in general love to come on this page, other pages, they do their thing, and they give the wrong information. And what I mean by the wrong information is simply this. It's the wrong information. Now, with the dogs, right? With these Merle dogs, I've seen people several times I don't know, and people know what they know, and they're limited to knowing what they know. But I've seen people spreading this information about the dominant and there is no recessive gene in the Merle. That's a lie. First of all, the origins of the Merle pattern, and it's not a color, it's a pattern. But the origin of the Merle pattern comes from recessive genes. In a lot of breeds, early, the Merle pattern wasn't there. It's believed that this gene comes from basically the beginning of dogs. You know what I mean? And what happens is certain breeds have had this gene in there and it arises. This is why breeds who typically don't have it, they never see it because it's not something that just sort of develops. Whoever had it. If it comes in, it's added. But the thing of it is once it's there, it's possible that it doesn't present itself for some generations. And you'll know it's there, but it can skip 2, 3, 4, 5 generations. And I'll tell you about the Alapaha. And I speak from experience, not from just reading. But I have read. Just listen. Okay, there was a dog, and I won't name all of the dogs, but I've told you about my experience with Alapahas. This one particular dog was mostly white. He had a small, like, light tan patch around his eye. It wasn't a Merle patch. Now, I remember, and I was a very young breeder at this time, had no knowledge of the Merle besides, in other breeds. Well, it was a big question as to why this particular dog, which was beautiful, loaded with muscle, just a gorgeous dog, but why he was going all white. Then this particular dog started to throw a lot of Merle dogs at a super high rate, right? Now, the question became, and his owner shot all the way from California and went to Georgia, and he ended up talking to one of the bigger Catahoula breeders' daughter. He didn't get to talk to her. She had already passed at that time. And he wanted to figure out, like, okay, I've had no Merles in my Alapahas for years. Why is it that this particular dog is now all of a sudden just boom, Merles everywhere? Every litter he was throwing was about half. And that's how I ended up with the Merle gene, by way of this dog. And so what happened is that she basically did what I would do now. She broke out the pedigrees and she went back generations. And those are the old pedigrees where you could, boom, just open these things up very, very wide and you could start circling things. And she showed this dog had literally not shown the Merle trait or pattern for over 5 generations. It was the 6 generations once they found it. But in that 6th generation, which that leaves you a lot of dogs back there were multiple, and I don't remember the exact amount of dogs, but there were multiple dogs that had these genetics. And it was on both sides of the family. For whatever reason, when this combination was presented, it made the gene go dominant. Now the big question was why this particular dog, and he was a singleton. So we went back to the experimental phase, and when I say we, I'm talking about the breeders who were doing it, but we were all very interested because we had this blood. So basically we mocked up the breeding to do a breeding that was very similar, very, very similar. Same thing happened. Same exact thing. And when I say same exact thing, in a litter of 6 puppies, there were 4 of them that were predominantly white dogs. Only difference in this litter is 2 of them had one crystal blue eye. But keep in mind, these dogs came from what we would call fawns, tans. They weren't showing the Merle trait. But by mocking the breeding back and going back 4 or 5 generations, I think in that case it was only about 4 to 5 generations. It wasn't quite back as far. The same exact thing started to happen. It was a lot of the same ancestors. It was a lot of the same dogs. The Merle pattern started to present itself again by way of dogs who were primarily white. So upon talking to a professor at let's just say a specific university who was very, very well versed in genetics, basically what he was explaining that what was happening is that the Merle gene had been there the whole time, but it wasn't presenting itself in a phenotype. By us continuously breeding in a certain way, which wasn't intentional, to compound the gene, he called it a breaking point. He called it a phenotype breaking point, to where certain genetics will compound throughout generations to a certain level where at that breaking point, they'll present themselves. Now, the strange thing about this one, but he said it happens, is that it had actually went past the Merle to the point to where in the genetics somewhere, it was presenting itself as a Merle and not showing. This is why the dogs were going all white, which happens when you breed too much Merle. But once it hit that point to where the dogs were starting to get all white, their offspring would come out predominantly Merle. And when I say predominantly Merle, it was a high rate. I would guess, and this has been when this was going on, this was 2000. So this was, I would say, half of the litters, which was a lot because we didn't have Merle dogs in there. And it sparked a study not only amongst ourselves as breeders, and I'm talking about we had breeders, multiple of us was in Ohio. We had a lady over in Pennsylvania. We had several breeders in California, Georgia. We wanted to know about these genetics, so we start talking to other breeders, and they talked about the same phenomenon of skipped generations with the Merle gene. The idea, and it's more writing on this. This is not just bully people, but what you see with a lot of bully people is they Google and they'll get that very bland answer that, oh yes, it's a dominant gene and the only way to produce it is that's a lie. This is why this gene has presented itself without presenting itself in several breeds and for several generations. Then it pops back up. This is how it derived. And it's just like any other recessive gene. If it is compounded enough, it can become a dominant trait. This is fact. It's just like that you may have diabetes. And let's put it this way. Your grandparent may have had diabetes. It doesn't show up in your mother. It's not showing up in you. But that gene for diabetes is still in your kid. If your kid marries somebody who has a heavy diabetic gene in their family, although it may have not presented itself in that kid or its grandparent or spouses, by those two getting together, it's a higher propensity because the gene is compounded. This is why they ask you about your medical health. Your medical history, because you can sort of draw conclusions from it. It's not always 100%. If it was 100%, every breeders would know exactly what to do all the time. You will have derivatives, and it's hard to see how dominant a gene is or is not. But the fact of the matter is, these people telling you that the only way that this works is that if you see it through phenotype, that's a lie. The siblings that do not present the Merle gene still have the Merle gene behind them. They can produce Merles. Ask other breeders who have seen it happen where they breed two dogs that don't have Merles and they have Merle puppies. It is super misleading to keep on telling people that the gene is not there as long as you know. And guess what? If you are breeding dogs that the half of the litter was Merle, but they are not Merle, to another Merle, you are doubling down on that Merle gene, and you have a higher propensity for the flaws that come along with the Merle gene. This is fact. But they want to tell you these things because they're at an infantile stage of dealing with these things. They're going to tell you lies, and you're going to fuck up something. I'm just telling you this. I'm not Googling this. This is 20 plus years of experience. As I've dealt with American bullies, I kept dealing with the Lapahas. Our Lapaha program ran for 12 years. We just wasn't incorporating it into anything with the bullies for this reason, because a lot of you people don't know what you're doing with it. You can read on Google all day. I can tell you from experience. I can tell you from other breeders. I can tell you from what a genealogist said. I can tell you everything that I know. I'm not going to debate it. It makes no sense, even in genetics, no matter how many times y'all talk about alleles and this and that and the other, you can produce a Merle dog with two dogs that are not Merle. I will get you a bunch of people who will tell you how it comes about. They have done it. And if you are breeding to, it makes no sense where if you're going to really sit here and say that, and of course, all litters that have Merle puppies, every puppy doesn't come out Merle. So you're telling me they have the exact same mom and dad. The sibling came out Merle, but the other sibling has absolutely nothing at all in its genetics that says anything about Merle. That's bullshit. And this is one of the reasons why today, right now, I've seen you people talking about this same theory. And I've also seen your dogs having fucking seizures at the ear crop place. I've seen your dogs be deaf and blind as they start to test their hearing and their vision at the fucking veterinarian. I've seen a veterinarian scold a breeder and tell him the exact same thing I'm telling you right there in Houston. Y'all can keep on believing all of these internet breeders, but I'm telling you, the Merle gene is a volatile gene, and this is why there's so much attention paid to it in other places. These people telling you that the simple remedy is just to breed a Merle dog to something that is not Merle, that is not factual, and you can mess up your gene pool, you can mess up your dogs and other things. I don't breed Merle. It does not belong in American Bully. It does not belong in Frenchies. And it just does not belong. Those breeds really don't have it. So that's another volatility that we don't actually know what it does with these breeds, and usually you need a 10-year run to see what are the adverse effects. But because we have all of these quote-unquote scientific Google breeders, they're going to tell you that the thing, oh yeah, and I know and I know. I seen the fucking dog shaking on the ground. I seen a veterinarian that has no problem telling you he sees over 2,000 dogs a year, talking about how other breeds of dogs go under no problem, and he literally has had more dogs die in recent years that are Merles than he's had in his whole 20 plus years of practice. But y'all will keep on because you want to be a Google breeder. I'm not going to make up something just to make up something. I'm telling you what I've seen with my own eyes. I'm telling you what very, very smart people have conferred with me. I'm telling you off of experience. I'm telling you about seeing the end results of dogs suffering from the issues that come along with these Merles. Yet and still, the Google breeders always got something to say. Fuck around and find out is all I can tell you. Fuck around and find out. Do your studies, do your research. If you're going to try to do that Merle thing, which I don't think you should, but if you're going to try to do it, you should be trying to do it from a family of dogs that pretty much don't have the Merle gene. Or if they have it, it's way, way, way recessive, so you can lower your chances mathematically of issues. But if you think that you can line breed Merle, and the way that we're putting Merle in everything now, that means that all of the dogs at some point in time are going to have a Merle gene. It's going to continue to get compounded, and you're going to see a bunch of weird shit. It's just the way it goes, because certain breeds, the genes have adapted over literally 100 years to where the natural selection process has happened to where this is a gene that's throughout their entire breed, and it's weeded itself out to get rid of all the weak and the adverse traits that come along with it. We are introducing constant new genes with a volatile aspect, and we are expecting that to go perfectly. American bully breeders, at least for once in your life, be smart. I'm not telling you you can't do it. I'm telling you to be careful, study, do your research, keep your notes on generation to generation, because we won't know exactly what this thing does or how it's going to work out. In maybe the blotch American bully will become its own breed. We won't know the actual effects of this for 10 to 15 years. It's going to take generations to see how this stuff is working out inside these particular breeds that don't naturally have the the blotch slash Merle pattern as a part of its makeup. We will have to see the process. This is the way it goes with everything. But instead, I would, instead of Googling every damn thing, I would hope that you guys pay attention, study, and if you do see problems arriving, like dogs having seizures, serious skin issues, deafness, blindness, there's even some reported cases of heart issues, and that they're trying to correlate with the Merle pattern. If you see these things, then you have to fix the dogs and you have to go forward, man. But I thank y'all, and I don't want y'all to think I'm just like super aggressive to those that disagree with me. But I'm just telling the community what I do know so that they don't make the same mistakes and we have more sick dogs. Don't take it personal. Till next time, much love, y'all. God bless.